My coworker stared right at me in a meeting and said, "We all know you only got this job because you're sleeping with someone upstairs." I felt my face burn as the room went dead silent. My boss chuckled and added, "Well, if the heels fit." I spoke no word. I just sent a single email that night with dates, times, and recordings. The investigation took 2 weeks. When the results dropped, HR called it the most coordinated abuse of power we've ever seen. I never thought I'd become the quiet person in the office. When I got hired at this tech company in Dallas, I was excited, driven, maybe even a little cocky. I came in with experience over 10 years in product strategy, and I knew how to get things done. People respected that, at first. The company was mid-size, maybe 300 employees across a few cities, and our Dallas office had about 80. I was hired as a product strategy lead, which meant I was constantly in meetings, helping shape the direction of features and tools for clients. I wasn't new to tough conversations. I was used to navigating egos, politics, and power plays. But I wasn't ready for the type of rot that was living just below the surface at this place. At first, it started with little things. Side glances. People interrupting me mid-sentence during meetings. My ideas getting ignored until a male colleague said the same thing 5 minutes later. You know the drill. There was one guy in particular, Jordan Caldwell, who made sure I never forgot I was a woman in a room he thought should only have men. Jordan was a senior software developer. Older than me by a few years, probably late 30s. Balding a little at the temples, always chewing sunflower seeds like he was bored with everything and everyone. He was one of those guys who made everything a joke, even when it wasn't funny. He'd interrupt me constantly. "Okay, but let's hear from someone who's actually built something. You know, for someone who's never written a line of code, you sure like to make decisions." Once in front of my team, he called me Product Barbie. I reported him. HR said they'd follow up. I got a 1-paragraph email 2 weeks later saying the matter had been handled. Yeah, okay. The truth was Jordan was protected. He was buddy-buddy with Darren, my direct boss and the head of product. Darren was slick. Always wore nice watches. Played golf with the CPO. He loved quoting books he didn't read. The kind of guy who said, "I love women in leadership," but never let any of them speak uninterrupted. I learned fast that if I wanted to survive, I had to keep my head down and let the bullshit slide. But I didn't stop collecting it. Every weird Slack message. Every joke in meetings. Every eye roll. Every time someone called me honey or kiddo. I screenshotted everything. I had my phone recording during a few Zoom meetings too. One party consent in Texas, so I was good. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with all of it, but something told me I'd need it one day. That day came faster than I expected. It was a Tuesday. Weekly strategy sync. About 20 people in the conference room, even more on Zoom. I was halfway through presenting Q4 launch performance. Things were going great. We'd hit 94% of our goals. I was proud. Jordan was slouched in his chair, spinning a pen, clearly not paying attention. And then, out of nowhere, right in the middle of my presentation, he said, "We all know you only got this job because you're sleeping with someone upstairs." I heard it clear as day. The whole room went dead silent. A few people actually gasped. I turned to look at him, thinking maybe I misheard. But no, he was grinning, proud of himself. Before I could say anything, Darren, my boss, remember, laughed loud and said, "Well, if the heels fit." I felt my face heat up so fast I thought I might pass out. My hands were shaking. I looked around the room. Not a single person said anything. Not one. Even the CTO, Marissa, who was on the Zoom call, didn't speak up. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't do anything. I closed my laptop, sat down, let the rest of the meeting pass me by like I wasn't there. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed up, going through everything I'd collected over the past year. Every message, every calendar invite, every voice memo. I organized it all into folders. I made timelines. I wrote notes. And then I sent one email. I didn't send it to the regular HR alias. I sent it directly to Natalie, our senior HR manager. She was new. Came in a couple months ago after some kind of lawsuit in Denver. She was serious. Smart. I figured she might be different. Subject line: Coordinated hostile behavior evidence attached in the email. I laid out everything. Dates, names, quotes, recordings, screenshots. I named names. I listed patterns. I pointed out retaliation. I even called out how HR had handled it before with no results. And at the bottom I wrote, "This is not an isolated case. It's a system. I'm willing to cooperate fully. But I expect action." I hit send at 1:47 a.m. The next morning at 8:32 a.m. Natalie replied. Her message was short. "Thank you. I've escalated this to the Executive Risk Committee. We'll be in touch today." By noon, both Jordan and Darren were put on leave. I didn't hear much for the next 2 weeks. HR was in full lockdown mode. Investigators were flown in. People were being interviewed left and right. I kept my head down and answered questions when asked. I didn't volunteer anything extra. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. What I didn't expect was how many others came forward. It wasn't just me. Turns out 2 other women had been quietly documenting similar experiences. Different departments, same guys. Same behavior. One of them had even been pushed out last year after she tried to report Darren. Natalie kept me updated without giving away too much. But I could tell this was going to be big. And it was. But the ending hasn't come yet. Because what happened next changed everything. By the start of week 3, things felt tense. People didn't look me in the eye anymore. The same coworkers who used to eat lunch with me were now too busy. I'd walk into the break room and conversations would die. Some looked scared. Others looked pissed. That's when the rumors started. I heard from someone in IT that Jordan had told people I'd faked the recordings. Said I edited them to frame him. Darren apparently was calling it a personal attack. Said I had a vendetta because I was jealous of his position. The crazy part? Some people believed them. There was this group, 4 guys from engineering and a couple women from marketing, who started calling me the witch. As in, careful what you say, the witch is watching. They didn't say it to my face. They weren't that brave. But I heard it. In the halls. In whispers. I could have gone back to HR, but I didn't. I was tired. And honestly, I wanted to see where it would go. That Friday, I got called into a second confidential meeting. Same group as before. Natalie, our lawyer, the CTO, and this time the CEO himself showed up in person. Evan. He was stiff. Cold. Like he didn't want to be there. He didn't even greet me. Natalie did all the talking. We've concluded our investigation. As of this morning, 7 employees have been terminated for violations of company policy and workplace harassment. 2 others resigned. We want to thank you for your cooperation. She passed me a folder. Inside were the official findings. It was surreal reading it. Darren, fired for repeated harassment, retaliation, and abuse of authority. Jordan, fired for targeted harassment, inappropriate conduct, and hostile workplace behavior. The others, names I didn't even expect, were found guilty of spreading rumors, enabling abuse, and in one case, falsifying performance reviews for women who complained. I didn't know whether to be relieved or sick. Evan finally spoke up then. We'd like to offer you Darren's position. With a title and pay adjustment. You'd report directly to Marissa. I stared at him. He looked bored. Like this was just something to check off his list before heading to lunch. I asked him one question. Would I have authority to restructure the department? He hesitated. Within reason, yes. I closed the folder, looked at Natalie and said, I'll think about it. But I already knew. I wasn't going to take it. What nobody at that table realized was that during the investigation, I'd been getting job offers. Quiet ones. Through people I'd met before this company. Word had gotten out that I stood up to toxic leadership and won. I was getting invites to speak, to consult, to lead elsewhere. But that wasn't the twist. The real twist came 2 days later. I got an email from Jordan's wife. First, I almost deleted it. But curiosity won. She introduced herself, Melissa Caldwell. Said she found my email through one of Jordan's old Slack threads. Guess he wasn't careful about deleting his trail. Her message was short, and not what I expected. Thank you. For telling the truth. For not staying silent. I knew something was wrong for years. You didn't just save yourself. You saved me too. She attached a photo of her signed divorce papers. That hit me harder than anything HR said. I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. But I didn't need to. Because that's when I realized this wasn't just a workplace thing. This was bigger. And the rot didn't stop with one email. It was still spreading. I had a choice now. Take the promotion. Or do something bigger. And I wasn't done yet. I declined the promotion that Wednesday. I walked into Natalie's office, handed her the offer letter I hadn't even opened, and told her straight up, I'm not staying. You cleaned out a few, but the culture's still broken. I can't grow here. She didn't argue. She just nodded. Maybe she already knew. I gave 3 weeks' notice, agreed to help transition projects, and started packing up my stuff. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days before my last day, I got a call from Marissa, the CTO. She wasn't in the office often, but when she was, she made waves. She was the reason I even lasted this long. She believed in me when no one else did. But this time her voice was different. Tense. Low. You should know something, she said. Darren's threatening legal action. Not against the company. Against you. I didn't say anything at first. Just listened. He's claiming defamation. Says you orchestrated a smear campaign. That you went after him for personal reasons. He's using the fact that you declined the promotion to prove your motives weren't genuine. I let out a short laugh. I couldn't help it. It was insane. But also predictable. Is the company backing me? I asked. Marissa hesitated. That pause told me everything. They can't publicly. You're not an employee anymore. That word stung. Anymore. I hung up and called a lawyer the same day. I gave her the entire folder of documentation I had sent to HR. Plus everything I'd collected since. And then I gave her something else. An external drive with recordings no one had heard yet. You see, in my last few weeks, I kept my phone recording during lunch breaks, hallway chats, even after-hours drinks with coworkers. And one night, at a bar across the street from the office, I got audio of 2 former managers still employed, talking about how the company sacrificed Darren to protect the brand. That was the phrase they used, to protect the brand. One of them even joked, if that girl ever goes public, we're F*** edition. My lawyer listened to the clip 3 times before saying, you're sitting on gold. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came the following Monday. My last Monday. At 9:15 a.m. I got an email from a burner account. No name. No signature. Just a few lines. Look deeper into Q3 numbers. Fraud runs higher than harassment. Darren wasn't just a creep. He was covering up a massive client billing scheme. Start with Project Phoenix. Attached was a spreadsheet. Password protected. And the password? My last name. I froze. I had no idea who sent it. I'd heard whispers about Project Phoenix. It was an internal tools overhaul that had quietly been shelved without explanation. Darren used to mention it like it was a golden goose. Then suddenly it vanished. I used the password. Opened the file. It showed time tracking logs that had been manually altered. Fake billables. Inflated hours. Clients charged for dev work that never happened. All signed off by Darren. And at the bottom? A note field that said, cover gap with discretionary fund, Marissa approved 6/19. I didn't know what to do. If that was real, it meant Marissa might have been involved. Or maybe she was being used. But either way, it wasn't just harassment anymore. It was fraud. Real financial fraud. On paper. With traceable edits. And somehow someone wanted me to have it. That night I couldn't sleep again. I stared at my laptop, reading the spreadsheet over and over. Then I opened a blank email. No subject. And I started typing to the same lawyer. New development. Possibly criminal. Need to discuss whistleblower protections immediately. Because if I was going down this road, I had to finish it. I wasn't done. The whistleblower lawyer called me at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. She'd already gone through the spreadsheet and the metadata. Her tone was urgent. This isn't just real. It's big. If what you've got is even half true, It's enough to bury at least 3 people, maybe more. But you need to move carefully now. We filed a formal whistleblower complaint with the SEC within 48 hours. I also made a secure backup of the file and the call recordings I had from that bar. And I emailed a copy to Natalie in HR. Not to blow things up yet, but to give her a chance to act. She was the only one I still had a little faith in. Her reply came 1 hour later. This confirms what we suspected. You are not the first person to flag financial inconsistencies. But now we have proof. I'm escalating to legal and the board immediately. Thank you. Within 3 days, there was an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, but I knew about it because one of the junior attorneys, a woman I'd coached through a conflict earlier that year, called me afterward. You didn't just cause a storm, she said. You just caused an earthquake. Turns out Darren wasn't working alone. The billing fraud went back nearly 3 years. He had been padding project hours with a handful of project leads, marking full-time dev hours that were never worked, and then kicking the extra profit into off-books bonuses for certain people, including himself. A few $100 here, a few grand there. But over time? Hundreds of thousands. And the discretionary fund? Marissa had signed off on the reallocation, but the numbers she was shown had been altered. She was in the dark. They'd used her signature to rubber stamp fraud. She was furious. I thought that would be the end. The firings. The lawsuits. But it got crazier. 2 local news outlets picked up the story within a week. The headline read, Dallas tech firm rocked by internal fraud and harassment scandal. Whistleblower at center of case. I wasn't named, but people started to figure it out. Former employees reached out. Some cheered me on. Others were furious. And then the biggest twist of all. Jordan Caldwell tried to sue me for defamation and career sabotage. Again. This time, it didn't even make it past the first court hearing. My lawyer filed a countersuit, included all the recordings and documentation, and slapped him with a harassment claim. He folded. But I didn't stop there. I filed a civil suit against the company itself, not for money, but to force the public release of the HR findings and the financial fraud documents. My lawyers knew how to play the pressure game. They filed in federal court right where media coverage was already watching. Faced with exposure and loss of investor trust, the board settled. They agreed to release a redacted version of the report, donate $750,000 to an independent workplace equity initiative, and remove all members of senior leadership who were tied to either scandal. Darren, banned from ever working in corporate finance or management again. SEC put him under investigation. His assets are frozen. Jordan, fired, blacklisted, and now living off freelance IT gigs. I heard through the grapevine that he tried to apply to a job in Tulsa, but the hiring manager had read the court transcript from his case. Rejected immediately. 3 others? Charged criminally for falsifying financial records. One of them, Aaron, a dev lead, was sentenced to 6 months house arrest and community service. Marissa resigned, but not in disgrace. She launched her own startup consulting firm focused on ethical tech leadership. We're not close anymore, but she sends me holiday cards. And me? Well, I didn't walk away untouched. There were days I questioned if I went too far. If exposing everything made me look vindictive, not brave. Some old friends in the office cut ties with me. Even my family asked if I could have handled it more quietly. But I sleep just fine now. I work with companies around the country. I teach them how to spot early signs of abuse, how to protect employees who speak up, and how to make damn sure what happened to me to others doesn't happen again. The anonymous email that tipped me off about Project Phoenix? I never found out who sent it. But sometimes I wonder, was it a guilty soul trying to make it right? Or just someone who wanted to burn it all down? Either way, I finished what they started. They humiliated me in a room full of people. I destroyed them in front of the entire industry. One email, one folder, one voice that refused to stay quiet. Revenge wasn't loud. It was silent, cold, and permanent.